Hey, AJ, let your boy hold some.
This is the Atlanta Sports Party, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Sports Party, your home for the best Atlanta sports talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis and Maria Martin. The Atlanta Sports Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Falcons D may have bulletin board material ahead of the season. We'll talk about that and download on the Ace doing Ace things despite the final result. But first, the Falcons front office has done it again. The Atlanta Falcons and AJ Terrell have agreed on a 4-year extension worth $81 million with $65.8 million effectively fully guaranteed, which would make AJ the second highest paid corner ever in the NFL. The deal also has the largest guarantee ever for a corner on a 4-year deal. Now, we all believed a deal with AJ would likely get done, but Jarvis, do you like the fact that the Falcons focused on shoring up the safety position and getting a Pro Bowl pass rusher first and then locking in AJ?
Absolutely. Because when you think about it from that standpoint and take Matt Judon and Justin Simmons out of it, how about this? You don't let good corners walk out the door. Like, you pay those dudes. Those dudes don't hit the free agent market. And I'm almost at a point now where those guys are just as important as locking up your quarterback because, with what's going on with the Cowboys as far as like Dak Prescott potentially hitting the open market, they say that dude might command $55 to $60 million. When you talking about openly bidding on a quarterback that you know what you're going to get for the most part from a production standpoint. So yeah, I look at AJ Terrell in the same light. I was like, let this dude hit the open market and you'll see what his value is. And I promise you, there'll be multiple teams coming in. So yeah, shout out to Terry Fontenot for continuing to build this defense and lock in this defense to be like Justin Simmons mentioned, potentially they can be great. And we haven't had that conversation about a Falcons defense in quite some time.
Yeah, and Maria, whether it is free agency or whether it is extending the contract and shoring things up with a player that, yes, for the last couple of years hasn't quite been himself, but let's be honest, that wasn't all his fault. But he's shown flashes, and this Falcons team is showing that they believe in what he's capable of doing. How do you feel about the fact that the Falcons have said, hey, let's go ahead and lock AJ up with this 4-year deal?
Well, I think throughout all of the offseason, they've really voiced the importance of AJ Terrell to this organization and that he is a cornerstone piece in the secondary and that they did have a lot of faith in him. It's just, you can talk all you want and you don't really know what it looks like when he's headed into the final year of his rookie deal. And now, I mean, they put it on paper. This guy's locked in through the 2028 season. This verbalizes it as best as they could in any way, shape, or form. I mean, this is so fantastic for AJ. He burst onto the scene in 2021, had those 3 interceptions, has not had a pick since. And that's where I think a lot of the criticism is garnered around AJ Terrell. But again, Jarvis mentioned it. A lot of that is not entirely AJ's fault. And I think it's not like Raheem Morris is unfamiliar with AJ Terrell as well, because when he was the interim coach for the Falcons, he knew him back then because AJ Terrell was a 2020 pick in the NFL draft. And so he has seen AJ's potential. And I think it only gets better when it comes to the pieces that they've added on this defense. If I'm Jay, I'm looking around and saying, you guys finally got me some help. It's not all eyes on me. And that kind of started with Jesse Bates last year. And now you're seeing these pieces fall into place. And it makes more sense for AJ to truly be a cornerstone and a good piece on this team. I'm glad they invested in him because I've seen the value in AJ for a while. And I'm glad he's going to be here for years to come.
Yeah, and I think we almost saw AJ get back to AJ Terrell form when he had a real partner on the other side in Casey Hayward. Unfortunately, Casey went down and we were never quite able to see what that tandem would have looked like. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Maria. Now that, and I would say, just the entirety of the secondary, because I think they're going to kind of work like hand in glove. I think to have a really well-rounded out secondary, like you mentioned, what you get in Jesse Bates III, right? Justin Simmons and what he brings to the table. And then you've got Mike Hughes, D. Alford, and a good kind of rounding out with a Clark Phillips III. I think now you have a secondary that will allow AJ Terrell to show you what he's really capable of doing again. I also thought this was interesting, JD, that I saw online where Terry Fontenot told GoLongTD.com founder Tyler Dunn back in February that Arthur Blank truly gives him the leverage to do exactly what he's done this entire offseason. And I'll read you just a quick quote because I thought what he said was really cool. He said, many owners in pro sports put internal caps on how much their GMs can spend. Arthur Blank's not one of them. The Falcons billionaire has made it abundantly clear he'll spend anything, Fontenot says. He'll do anything. And the example he gave was this. If we can tell him, hey, look, that bag of Skittles right there, it costs $1 million a bag, but if we get the Skittles, we're going to be able to win a lot for this year. He says, Arthur Blank would say, go out and get the box of Skittles, and here's the money. So I absolutely love that quote because for me, Jarvis, it shows it's refreshing that Blank actually allows Fontenot to really get this team in win now mode.
And I actually got a chance to talk to Tyler, went up at the combine at the NFL draft combine, and actually he came on Atlanta Sports Party earlier on this year. But when you think about, I think the most interesting thing that he talked about in that conversation with Fondo is that he met him in a taxi cab when he was a pro scout for the Saints, and then he said even back then, he could kind of tell that this guy was like on his way to being a general manager, and he wasn't too shocked when he got the opportunity. But as far as the Arthur Blank piece goes, this is just who he is. Like in that, and then when you think about all the moves that have been made, free agency, whether it be free agency or via trade, like the owners have to approve of those things. And you think about Alex Mack coming in and what he did for that offensive line and led those guys to be able to go on that run to have one of the best scoring offenses in the league and get to the Super Bowl and do what they did, But I think that when you think about making those type of moves and spending that type of money in that particular area, like you have to say that Arthur Blank is committed to being a contender. Not only is the future looks bright for the Atlanta Falcons, like they are starting to look like that word, that combination of those two words that I just used, they're starting to like contenders. And that's what we haven't seen in a while. And I'm sure Arthur Blank is more than willing and has been more than willing. He's proven it by putting his money where his mouth is that, hey, I want to win a Super Bowl. And I think that when you put it like that and understand what we're dealing with the other Atlanta professional sports teams in the city, it's very refreshing. It's very refreshing.
Just a little shade there, just a smidge.
Well,
just
y'all know how I get down.
Light shade.
I let you know how I feel.
Right, exactly. I love that about you. I think a couple of things are at play here. Number one, we have to remember that the Falcons have not been an organization that have been able to spend in the last couple of years. So I think that's really important to mention. And they have been in a hole, and it's been getting out of that hole the last couple of years. So now they're finally in a place where they can spend. So that's the first piece that I think is really important for people to remember. And Arthur Blank definitely is one of those guys where if he has the money, which we all know he does, and you tell him this is what has to happen in order to bring a Super Bowl to Atlanta, he's going to do everything humanly possible. He's 81 years old, turning 82 in September. His patience meter is very low when it comes to winning football. And he's seen a lot of teams get really close. His team, we don't even have to bring it up, in the Super Bowl. And so he really wants to be in that scenario and in that conversation again. And now that the Falcons have been able to spend more money and now they're in that conversation, now he feels like, okay, I'm back. I'm really close. And we are in a day and a time and an age where in the NFL, you have to spend money. You have to go get these big players in order to win. And it is very, very hard to have an entire roster full of guys that are worth big contracts. It doesn't work like that in the NFL. And the Falcons know that. They do it very well. They've gotten a lot of guys to be good by committee over the last couple of years. Well, that also means adding some of those pieces that are very expensive. I think Arthur Blank understands that full-heartedly. He's going to do whatever it takes. And I actually think we are talking about the Falcons being incredibly competitive this fall.
I think so too. And I think when you look at Arthur Blank, it's not just what he's done with the Falcons. It's kind of like this tweet that Tyler Dunn put out. It's kind of confirmation because we've seen it before with what he did with Atlanta United. We know that he is driven and he wants another championship under his belt. And as much as you love that MLS championship, the reality is even above and beyond a World Series, even above and beyond an NBA, there's nothing like winning a world championship in the NFL. And I know that that would be a notch on or a feather in Arthur Blank's cap to be able to do that. And yeah, I love what this team has been able to do and how Terry Fontenot has been building slowly, because he put the best players that he could, given the circumstances, in place the last couple of years. Not his fault that it didn't quite work out on the field as it should have, but ultimately he did what he could. But now that he has some room to play around with, now I think you're really going to see what we've seen, what he's able to do. Now it's just time for the team to show what they're able to do. Speaking of which, there's a part of this team that might want to show what they're worth, because some folks are giving them some bulletin board material ahead of the regular season. We will talk about that in our deep dive. This episode of our Atlanta Sports Party is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And think about this. I mean, we all go to different websites at the last minute, and it's such a hassle to have to do that. So to just be able to go through this site really, really quickly, or this app really, really quickly, and get a super deal, to me, that's absolutely awesome. And the fact that you can get priority Gametime Picks, that makes it easier to save on more sports, concerts, comedy, theater, that is awesome as well. And the seat views, like you get that panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you can make an informed decision. And the Gametime app will credit you 110% of the difference if you happen to find a lower price. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today for last minute tickets and lowest prices that are guaranteed. So Maria Arnold-Ebiketie mentioned recently that he sees the quote unquote negative feedback via social media when it comes to the Falcons' ability to get after the quarterback. But does the addition of Matthew Judon, and of course, that social media trolling can give you a little bit of motivation, does it give the Falcons that much more fuel to make a statement defensively this season?
Well, first things first, I think AK is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. And so
right, tells you exactly what's on his mind.
This is just, it's so funny. Like, really quick side story about AK, just to put this tweet into perspective. I did an Olympic story with the Falcons, and so I was asking them which teammate would be good at which Olympic sport. And I made the rule that you can only use yourself once, because AK, I knew, was going to say himself the entire time. So every single time I would ask him, hey, who would be good at this? He'd be like, me. And then he'd say me again. And I was like, all right, no, we got to one time minimum. That's just how funny he is. So this is just so perfect coming out of his mouth. And just, you know, he's 25 years old, so he's going to be paying attention to social media, whether he wants to admit it or not. And thank goodness for AK, because he'll always say, like Jarvis, things that are on his mind. You know, and Matthew Judon, shout out to the 32-year-olds out there. He's 32. He's not paying attention to it. He's kind of locked in. It's a different dynamic, but they're made aware of these things thanks to their younger teammates. You know, there's a lot of guys in that locker room that are pretty young, and it'll tell them, but it's not a secret. It's not like people don't know that there has been a lot of conversation and criticism around the Falcons pass rush. We have not seen an effective pass rush in years. We've been talking about John Abraham being the last one to really pop off. I mean, I know we've talked about 2016 before, but John Abraham was really the last one to make a lot of sense when it comes to the pass rush for the Falcons. This is a unit, and this is a defensive unit that's just been near the bottom in every statistical category since their Super Bowl run. And that's not a lie. It's not unfair criticism. And so the guys know that. Getting a guy like Matthew Judon, I think, completely changes that. I went back and watched a lot of film on him couple of days ago after we were talking about him coming over, just reminded from Baltimore to New England how much of a genuine freak athlete he is. It is unbelievable. The speed coming off the line, his ability to get to the quarterback. He's so long. It's it's mind-blowing. And I want Falcons fans to go back and watch the tape because you're going to get that much juiced up. And if you're thinking he's coming off an injury, he's 32 years old, I don't know what he looks like, I can almost guarantee you he's going to be just as good as he was before. This guy is a unit changing piece. And so I think that that can just silence people in and of itself. But until you put up the numbers, people are still going to say that, where is the Falcons pass rush? That's just, it's fair criticism. I understand it.
Yeah, and Matthew Judon, in addition to his freakishly athletic abilities that we actually have seen multiple times across two teams, I think also motivation from the way he departed from New England is going to actually be plenty good for you to see the best Matthew Judon that you could see. But like Maria said, Jarvis, people take different things to kind of like motivate them, and whether that defense has seen it themselves, read it themselves, ultimately speaking, they've heard the noise in some way, shape, or form. And Matthew Judon individually is hearing the noise about, yeah, but are you that guy or are you not that guy? How do you feel like all of this can come together in addition to the talent that this team has to motivate this team to be kind of that all-world defense and shut the noise down? Also, especially because all the talk about the Falcons being successful this season is predicated on what? The offense.
Yeah, I think this has the opportunity to be special. Meaning, when I'm talking about Matthew Judon and AK, being able to come in on the edge on third and long, I feel like it has the opportunity to be special. And AK is already kind of lending out a helping hand as far as like, hey man, this is what this call means. And Matt already talked about how he's been helping me. He's
so cool. I love that.
I just love his delivery because you can kind of tell he got like a little Southern drawl to him. I know he's from Michigan and everything, but you just kind of tell he moves. He's a different type of cat, and he moves, to his own beat. So, but yeah, just from a football standpoint, the dude has all the instinct in the world, and I feel like AK can benefit from being around a guy like that. I talked about how, Braden Trice and AK has a potential, right? But I think potential goes out the door when you talk about him putting Matthew Judon in place of Braden Trice. That is an extreme upgrade. No shade towards Trice, but, potential and actual results are two totally different things. And I think that Judon being in that spot, not with the whole contract situation, and then AK paying attention to the negative feedback, I think that a combination of those two things, and you getting those guys out there together and knowing what they have to do in order for it to be successful, because at the end of the day, you have to, in order to be able to be a perfect marriage on this, for it's offense and defense to be married together. Like, they have to give it to the quarterback, because I'm assuming they're going to put up 25, 27 points a game. That's an assumption with all the money that's been invested on that side of the football. So if you are playing with leads, like, in order to put teams away, you got to be able to sack the quarterback. So I feel like this is a perfect marriage. Them AK paying attention to the negative feedback, Judon wanted to get paid, and with AJ Terrell, he freed up a little change. So, hey, man, he like, Judon might say, man, let me get about 6 sacks in the first month of the season so we can go and get this thing taken care of, and we can go ahead and worry about being a contender for the rest of the year, and I don't have to worry about a contract.
Yeah. One really quick thing when it comes to that dinner at Chops that everyone was so interested in. I thought that, listening to Justin Simmons talk about it and recall the fact that they went to that meeting and he heard out his now new defensive teammates. And one of the things that was illustrated to him was, you can either get on board or not. It doesn't matter, because we're going in one direction with or without you. And he actually liked that was said to him. It was hey, we're hungry. We don't need you. We want you, but we don't need you. Exactly. And so I think that Tanisha, that goes back to your question, is how can this come together to be special? I think that's it right there. The proof is in those comments made by Jesse Bates. It's either you're coming with us, we're doing this thing with or without you, brother. And as soon as he saw Matthew Judon come through, he said, call my agent and I want to be in Atlanta. So I thought that was really important for those players to vocalize that we're hungry. We want you. We don't need you. I think that was, it was perfect. I love that Jesse said that at that dinner.
Yeah, and Jarvis, I think that's that different kind of culture that we talk about. We talk about the dog that comes out, and that's low key, that's quiet, but that's dog. I mean, that's real next level. Like, okay, you're good, and we acknowledge that you're good, but the culture that we're building here is for people who not just we need, but that want to be here. And I think it also says a lot about Raheem Morris and kind of what he's setting, the culture that he's establishing about a winning culture, a culture where players want to come here and help build, but that the players who are already here are saying, hey, we know we're here and we know we can even get here. I love that part of it. And I think the fact that, and I know we've talked about it before, but it goes back to what that culture is doing, not just for this year, but for years to come, because the Falcons, Terry Fontenot, Raheem Morris, and Arthur Blank by default are continuing to build a culture that players are wanting to come and be a part of and start to make a team and a franchise that will be reckoned with for not just this year, but years to come.
We've talked about that, guys. We've talked about Atlanta being a destination for players to come to, and that the Hawks have not made it easy for people to want to come and play in Atlanta. And so the Falcons, that being a first step, Justin Simmons is proof of, I want to be there. You show players your plan for success and your desire to win and what you're doing. You can say you want to win all day, right? Everybody in the National Football League wants to win. Okay, let's not forget that should be unsaid every single day. It's not like people are going to work every day thinking, I want to lose a football game. Everybody wants to win. What are you doing to get there? And it's bringing guys like Matt Judon and Kirk Cousins and actual players that can help you win football games. That's the message. It's been loud and clear by the Falcons. They've been splashy this offseason. I've been so impressed.
And to your point, Maria, not only be it for the players to come in and see it, it's the players that are regurgitating it back to those players or those people that are coming in and potentially want to sign with the team. So that means that that's been constantly ingrained in their minds. Raheem not only telling them, but showing them like, hey, the Arthur Blank, if you come here, you're going to get taken care of. Grady Jarrett saying to Justin Simmons, hey, this is how they treat you in Atlanta when he jumping into whatever doggone Bugatti, Lamborghini, whatever he jumped in. We don't know what he was in, but we know it's expensive. So, like, yeah, if you come here and ball out, man, the little slingshot, right? You know, in Atlanta.
Shout out to CP.
Yeah, coming out of chops, man. Shoot, I'm a married man, but I know what goes down in chops. You know, so yeah, but my point.
Well, I guess I just learned something new today.
It's not this kind of podcast, Jarvis.
Sorry, my bad. I was just trying to help the brothers out, who out there, struggling a little bit. But yeah, but I think that, overall though, there is a vibe here. I know people like to use that word a lot nowadays, but like football players pick up on vibes. Like they can tell if you're full of crap a mile away. I promise you. Because they've been around different types of people and they understand like how locker rooms and dynamics work. So for guys to come here, you can't sell them a hill of beans. Like, oh man, we're gonna do this and no, they see it, they feel it.
Matt Judon talked about that. He talked about the locker room and how it's cohesive.
Yes,
he literally said, I don't know if y'all have been in there, but this is no joke.
Yeah. So when you have that type of stuff going down, it's not a pitch. It's like, hey, man, this is what it is. And do you want to be a part of it or no? And Justin Simmons was like, yes, I want to be a part of this. So, it's going to be a lot more players doing that because Raheem Morris has established that. And I don't hear anybody talking about Bill Belichick anymore. I know that has gotten really quiet.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't hurt that Raheem has that Super Bowl pedigree to boot. We'll download on the Ace doing Ace things despite the final result maybe not going their way when we go around the Metro. Locked On Sports Today is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the noise. Locked On Sports Today also brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tough one Wednesday, Jarvis. The Atlanta Braves lost 3-2 to the Philadelphia Phillies, but despite that loss, Max Fried had himself a night. Best outing in 4 starts since coming back from the IL that saw him give up 2 runs on 4 hits in 7 innings and strike out 4. I think that was still, despite the loss, something that was good to see in Mad Max.
Yeah, because this is what is going, given the up and down season that the Braves have had, right? Like the one constant that has been is the doggone pitching staff. We talked about it earlier on in the week on the baseball party. So when you think about getting one of those key pieces, like the big three. We always talk about the big three in the playoffs. You're
Yeah.
talking about Ronaldo Lopez looked really good the other day. Then you got Max Free, who hasn't looked all that great, but he looked really good too on Wednesday night. So when you have all of those things coming together, and we know what Chris Sale is a Cy Young Award guy. Like, he should be the guy, right? So when you have a combination of those three things, like, you know that for a fact that you have what's the most important thing going into the playoffs. And if everything all works out like they're supposed to, not necessarily in the NL East, I'm not really concerned about that. But if they hold on to this wild card spot, they have a chance if these three are rolling like they are right now.
I've said it before. I don't really think that they should win the division, which, relax, Braves country, don't come for me. I think that everyone is in the same umbrella now too, because the last two previous years that they had won the division, I know that there's plenty more before that. There's 6 straight, blah, blah, blah. But the last two, when there wasn't a break, they went right into postseason, or they did have a break. They couldn't figure out what to do in that break. They tried something different the second time. It still didn't work. They faced the Phillies again. It still didn't work. So maybe the difference is being a wild card team and not having that break. You've seen some of the hottest teams in baseball that continue to play and just have that momentum. It's a funny thing in sports, have that momentum carry them in the offseason. So maybe that's the missing piece to the Braves postseason. I honestly can't say that though, just because this team they're kind of like patched together at this point. You know, every time you turn around, there's a different guy getting hurt. But I think for Max, being able to do what he did against the Phillies was fantastic. His K rate's been really low, but guess what? Runs are not coming across. He had only 2 strikeouts through 5 scoreless innings. I'm okay with that because he was actually pitching like we know he can. And it was really refreshing. And I think he needs that for a confidence boost. You know, coming back from the injured list, he didn't look good, has not looked good. And I think yesterday was kind of the first indicator that, okay, if he pitches like this in the postseason and the Braves can actually string some things together at the plate with this patchwork team that they've got going right now, I actually think that they might be okay. I don't want to say they're going to go super deep in the postseason. I'm not very convinced that this team is able to do that. I haven't seen a lot of indicators to tell me that they can, but look, postseason baseball is funny and anything can happen. But I said it yesterday on 11 Alive when I was live at the ballpark, that it's guys like Max Fried that if they stay sharp, they might be able to do some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with what your point about Jarvis, them not necessarily being in position to win the NL East, but you still always want to win these series because you're looking at tiebreakers, even when it comes to that wild card race and potentially hosting a series. So what do we need to see tonight, hopefully in this rubber match, for the Braves to walk away with this series win?
Yeah, I think that, you have to be timely and consistent, at the plate, because like those patchwork guys that Maria talked about, those guys have to be able to come through. I like what I've seen on the defensive end from Gino Urshela, right? It's like he had an excellent one out there in the field against the Phillies last night. So when you have those type of things going on, being timely at the plate and obviously, continuing that pitching trend of your guys, your starters coming through for you, and Spencer Swellenbach. So those are some of the things that you have to make sure that are in line with what you're trying to do. So continuing with the pitching staff dominance, right? Or them continue to carry, and maybe a guy like Marcel Ozuna can come through for you like he's been doing all season.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been a funny series because now they're 6 games away from the top of the division, or they're 7. At the beginning when they were 6, that's not that big of a lead with how much baseball we have left. And we've seen the Phillies go up and down, and they were kind of on a rough stretch before they won last night. And, the opening game of this series, when you have your 3 best hitters go a combined 0 for 12, it's good for the Braves to capitalize on that. And yes, they did. And Gio Urshela is a guy that has had a second opportunity in baseball with the Braves. And I think that's really important. And he also played for the Phillies. So what better way to kind of hand it to your old team than doing well out there in the outfield? And he's been a good piece so far, but it's such a little sample size of Gio. I think it's good because especially when your manager says this is a guy who can totally turn things around for himself. I mean, granted, it's late August. We don't have a lot of time to turn things around for ourselves anymore. And I think I've been echoing that in the last couple of episodes. Time is running out. Time is of the essence. And every single win at this point really genuinely counts. Orlando Arcia going yard and staring down Bryce Harper. Give me that all day. I love the drama. It's freaking hilarious. Orlando cannot help himself. I don't know why, but it's so entertaining.
Bryce gonna go 4 for 4 tonight, by the way.
As soon as he did that, I was like, oh no.
I love it though, man. Let's go.
Yes,
Man.
yeah,
Let's
go. But it's gonna poke that fire even more. But I think that every single win counts at this point. So to me, it's not even just being consistent, because I think that they need to be consistent. It's just getting opportunities where you can and really capitalizing off of that, whether it's a random Marcel Ozuna home run here or there, or timely hitting, not leaving a ton of guys stranded on base. They just are going to have to get some stuff together, because we are running out of time, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. And speaking of getting some things together, looks like the dream might be here now. Tina Charles moved into second place on the WNBA's all-time scoring list with the Dream's Wednesday 72-63 upset win over the Phoenix Mercury. TC had a game-high 22 points in the upset win over the Sun Sunday and hit the game winner when they upset the Storm Friday. And of course, the Dream have now beaten 3 of the top 4 teams in the W. And this is after dropping 8 in a row before the All-Star and WNBA break, or the Olympic break rather. So, Maria, is this team finally maybe hitting its stride at the right time, because they've got 13 games left to sneak their way into the playoffs?
3-game win streak for those ladies. How about that? First time all year they've been able to string together 3 straight wins, which I think is great, because we talk about listening to the noise and criticism, and do you hear it? And I think that it was growing really, really loud for the Dream, and rightfully so, because you look at this roster and you bring up Tina Charles as the great one. They've brought in pieces to really help this team, and Ryan Howard obviously is a cornerstone piece, and she should be here for a very long time. She's incredible. She was unsatisfied with her bronze medal in Paris. And I think that energy and effort translates to her play here in the Dream. She's unsatisfied with just being okay or just being in the conversation, and that's what I think the conversation is with those women. And Tanisha, you can talk about this for sure, but they are all competitive and want to be at the top of the W. And Tina Charles is one of those that quite literally is. I mean, second all time in WNBA history when it comes to scoring. She's fantastic. And what an addition and kind of a juice and resurgence in this roster. And especially sometimes you need a break. Braves don't need a break. Let's not talk about the Braves in a break. Maybe the Dream needed a break. Right. They got the Olympic break. They kind of maybe looked in the mirror and said, what's our identity? What do we want the rest of the season to be? Because all hope is not lost. And they're showing you in very real time. They're coming out and beating very good teams 3 straight. I'm starting to like what I'm seeing from the Dream on the second half of this ride.
Yeah.
Maybe Tanisha listen to the show, T. She listened.
We had some tough criticism for her, but it was boring.
And I mean, there were people that were, there were calls for her job. And I literally said to myself, like, oh my God, I hope, for starters, the U.S. women's national team wins the gold, because she was a scout on that team and that might help out. But I think her having time to breathe and kind of reflect her approach along with her entire staff, I think Tina Charles just being Tina Charles and needing a breather, because Tina Charles is, she's an OG, if you will, but also that 8-game streak saw the team go without Ryan Howard, and for parts of it, Jordan Canada. And when Jordan Canada is on that court, that is a totally different team. And they've been like the Braves, by the way, up and down with a lot of players going in and out because they're without their spark plug Aerial Powers right now too. But yeah, I like what I'm seeing in them. And I think it might be a prelude or a precursor to what we'll see the rest of the season. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Sports Party your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Hawks for your second listen, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you on the Atlanta Football Party Monday.